You didn't learn this in history class. For centuries, people actually ate mummies. And we don't mean that metaphorically. Real human remains, sometimes thousands of years old, were ground into powder and consumed in hopes of healing everything from headaches to plague. It sounds too bizarre to be true, but it was a widespread and accepted practice across Europe for hundreds of years, from apothecaries to royal courts. Mumia was marketed as a miracle cure. But how did a civilization end up eating the dead? And what does that say about our relationship with science, power, in the past? Today on Wonky History, we're unwrapping the truth behind one of history's strangest medical fads. Why people used to eat mummies. Section 1, the medieval mummy craze. Let's go back to medieval and Renaissance Europe, a time when medicine was often based on superstition, guesswork, and tradition. One of the most bizarre treatments to emerge during this period was the ingestion of mumia, a substance made by grinding up Egyptian mummies. It was believed to have extraordinary healing powers. People thought that if a body could survive the ages and remain preserved for thousands of years, then it must contain some powerful life force that could be transferred to the living. Physicians and apothecaries recommended mumia for everything from headaches and nosebleeds to epilepsy and the bubonic plague. And this wasn't just a folk remedy. Mumia was mainstream. It was sold openly in pharmacies, prescribed by respected doctors, and written about in serious medical texts. Some even claimed it could extend life or restore youth. While it seems horrific today, at the time, eating mummies was seen as science. Section 2, mummy medicine for the elite. You might think that only the desperate or uneducated turned to mummy medicine, but in reality, it was popular among the rich and powerful. Royals and aristocrats believed in mumia's miraculous effects. Francis I of France was said to carry powdered mummy at all times, ready to ingest it at the first sign of illness or injury. It was believed to stop bleeding, cure internal ailments, and even protect against poisons. Wealthy patrons would spare no expense to acquire the finest powdered mummy. It was often mixed with wine, dissolved into elixirs, or baked into sweets. Mumia wasn't just a cure, it was also a status symbol. It represented access to ancient wisdom, exotic resources, and powerful remedies no commoner could afford. Using mummy powder was a way of aligning yourself with the mysterious and eternal power of ancient Egypt. Section 3. Where were these mummies coming from? To meet the demand, massive numbers of Egyptian mummies were looted from tombs and shipped across the Mediterranean. Entire burial grounds were ransacked by traders looking to cash in on Europe's obsession with mumia. Grave robbers, hired by merchants, tore open ancient tombs and packed up the remains of people who had been buried with honor centuries earlier. As demand soared and real Egyptian mummies became harder to find, some sellers got creative. They started making fake mummies using recently deceased criminals, beggars, or enslaved individuals. These bodies were dried in ovens, smoked, or embalmed with crude methods to mimic the appearance of ancient remains. Many customers didn't know or care where the powder came from, as long as it looked authentic. Section 4. The ethical backlash. Eventually, people began to question whether this practice was morally or spiritually acceptable. Religious leaders raised concerns about desecrating the dead, especially human remains from another culture. Philosophers and theologians debated whether eating corpses, even for medicinal purposes, was sinful or sacrilegious. Some likened it to cannibalism, warning that it might have consequences not just for the body, but for the soul. Meanwhile, advances in science and medicine revealed that mumia had no real healing power. In fact, ingesting decomposed flesh could be harmful. Doctors started to note that there was no measurable benefit from using it, and in some cases, it made patients worse. Combined with growing ethical unease, this led to a decline in the use of mummy powder by the 1700s. But surprisingly, some pharmacies still stocked it well into the 19th and even early 20th century. Section 5. Mummies as entertainment. When mummy medicine fell out of favor, Europeans found a new use for the ancient dead: entertainment. In the 1890s, during the height of Egyptomania, wealthy Victorians began hosting mummy unwrapping parties. They'd purchase real mummies, often through dubious means, and invite friends to watch as the linen wrappings were peeled away. These events combine curiosity, pseudoscience, and spectacle. Often hosted by collectors or amateur scientists, these parties were treated as social events, with guests marveling at the exotic and grotesque remains beneath the bandages. They justified it as education or archaeology, but at its core, it was a disturbing form of public dissection. Many mummies were destroyed in the process, lost forever to curiosity and casual disrespect. Section 6, Why It Matters. This all might seem like a strange footnote in history, but it reveals a lot about how cultures interact with the past. The mummy-eating craze wasn't just about medicine, it was about control, exoticism, and the belief that ancient cultures existed to serve modern needs. Europeans saw Egypt not as a civilization to respect, but as a treasure chest of resources to plunder. It's also a reminder of how quickly misinformation can spread when it's backed by authority and tradition. People believed in mumia because doctors said it worked. They ignored the lack of evidence and the human cost because it fit their worldview. Sound familiar? In many ways, the story of eating mummies is a cautionary tale about blindly following trends, trusting unproven cures, and forgetting the humanity behind historical relics. So yes, people really did eat mummies, not as a one-time event, but as a normalized practice across Europe for centuries. What they were really consuming wasn't just powdered flesh. It was a mixture of mythology, desperation, and a hunger for eternal life. Thanks for joining us on this wonky journey through one of history's strangest medical beliefs. If you enjoyed this dive into the bizarre and unexpected, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around for more oddities from the past. There's plenty more where that came from. No ancient curses required.